Welcome to the Jeff Crilley Show. And now, here's Jeff Crilley.
Welcome back to the final segment of the Jeff Crilley Show. Judy Hoberman, longtime friend. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
I am super excited to be here. I couldn't wait to get
and
here.
And you look fabulous.
Oh,
yes.
Well, I'm dressed for radio.
Okay. So she is the author of 3 best-selling books, Selling in a Skirt, Pure Wealth, 26 Ways to Crazy Profitability, Famous Isn't Enough, Earning Your Fortune as an Entrepreneur. So I am just so awestruck having you in studio to talk about everything from how women and men buy differently to Mother's Day gifts. But let's start with Mother's Day gifts.
Okay.
So I know that you've been interviewed on this subject this week, I think all over the country. Are there some things that you absolutely don't want to give mom?
Absolutely. There's a whole list of things you don't want to do. I would say the biggest thing is something that's going to help her clean, like a vacuum or a blender or an iron or something that has to do with her job. Even though it might be nice to put something pretty on her desk, she needs something that takes her out of that role. You know, for me, I like to have time with my family. So maybe you give her something that's more family-oriented that has to do with some time. Maybe it's going to the ballet, or maybe it's, going out to dinner or something. Something that means something as opposed to something that's useful.
Right. And like brunch, you can't go wrong with a meal, can you?
Absolutely, absolutely. A lot of times people say, well, I'm just going to send flowers, which is wonderful, but it's the card. It's what somebody says in the card. That just means a lot more. To me, I would rather just get cards than anything else, with something special written in it.
How do you feel about like a spa treatment, kind of just something to let mom relax?
That's perfect. That's a great gift. Again, you just have to make sure that your mom is the type that's going to be relaxed by going to get a spa treatment. Some moms don't like that. Some moms don't like massages. So you just have to know your mom.
Right. I hear different things about the etiquette of giving gift cards. Some people say it's impersonal. Some people say, you know what, let mom pick her out her own stuff. What do you think?
For me personally, I don't like gift cards because I think that you should take a few minutes and try to figure something out. But if all else fails, it's the perfect gift. It always fits. It's always the right size. It's always the right color.
That's right.
So rather than give nothing, I would do a gift card. But for me, I like the idea that that my kids would look at something that I would really like to have.
Awesome. So I know you're a trainer, you're a speaker, you're an author. Selling in a Skirt. That was the first time when I was introduced to you that you really caught my eye, and I said, selling in a skirt. Men and women buy differently. Mm-hmm. And you told me a story, and I don't know if you remember this. Ask your wife, Victoria. Do you remember this story?
I kind of remember most of it, but you can tell it.
Okay,
I'll react to it.
She said to me, and this is probably a decade ago, she said, ask your wife, Victoria, if she was going to Neiman's and she wanted to buy something under the counter, but the person behind the counter was being the least bit rude to her, would she buy from that clerk? And you said the answer will be, oh, no.
Totally not. And I know Victoria.
Yes.
And I'm not saying I know Victoria, and I know that she loves people.
Yes.
She does. That's what she does all the time. She builds relationships. So if she went up to a counter and the woman or man were rude to her, she'd be like, I don't need this. I'm going to turn around and go away. And even if she really needed something, she wouldn't do it. Because that's what we look for. We look for somebody that's going to create the experience for us, a good experience, because you want to come back and bring your friends. That's the purpose of selling.
So even if the woman needed the thing that was under the counter, she wouldn't buy from that person, but she might come back later that day and try and get a different clerk, or the next day.
She could. If she desperately needed something, she would buy it, but she wouldn't come back again knowing if that person was there.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, from the guy's perspective, if I needed something,
you'd buy it.
I'd buy it because this clerk is only going to be in my life until that credit card clears.
But that's a transaction. That's not a relationship. There's a big difference. A lot of times, like I come from the insurance world. There's plenty of times where you would be sitting with a client and you totally did not connect. If it was female, she probably would just say, you know what, we're okay now. Mm. If it was a man, he'd probably say, okay, let's get it done and let's be done with it, because it's just a different experience.
And this all started for you because you were kind of a woman in a man's world. Mm-hmm. Explain that.
So for 30 years, I've always been in male-dominated industries, always. And for some reason, either they didn't take me seriously or they didn't think I was the right person, but I was female. So I just kept getting pushed along. But when my numbers made some kind of an impact on people, they started taking me seriously. But I had to figure out a way to be successful by being me. That's number one. You have to be authentic, and also being female. And so I came up with my own playbook of how I was going to do things, how I was going to relate to people, how I was going to get referrals. And so after a while, my entire book of business was referrals only. It was never that I had to pick up the phone again and make cold calls, because everybody would make referrals to me because I showed, good work ethics, I had integrity, and if my product wasn't right, I didn't push it on you.
Wow.
But I also never sold anything. I always had these conversations with people, and that was more important because then they would get it. And I'd always ask a lot of questions. And you can ask anybody. My nickname is the Question Queen. So I just asked tons of questions.
And Judy and I have spoken not together on the same stage, but like the Texas Tire Dealers Association and some other associations. Do you prefer to speak in front of a group of men or a group of women?
I don't have any preference. It depends what my message is. A lot of times I'll speak to a group of men, and when I'm done, they'll say, oh my goodness, now I can speak to my wife, because we just give them little tips. So it really doesn't matter what it is. When I do my coaching, I prefer women because I am a woman. And it would be the same thing when a very successful man would say to me, well, I'll be your mentor. And that's great up to a certain point.
Right.
But he's not female. So I prefer when I'm doing coaching that it's women.
So if you're in a sales position, and I want you to give some advice to men now, if you're in a sales position and at least a large percentage of your customers are women, what are some mistakes that men are making in selling to women?
They don't include them in the conversation. They talk at instead of to. And they'll ask a question that's very, it's a close-ended question. Do you need it? When do you want it? How do you want to pay for it? Where a woman would go the same kind of information, but she'd ask for the why. So why do you need this? Because now that you have the why, the conversation has started. And now you can really get down to the nitty-gritty. So I think that one of the biggest mistakes is not including them in the conversation and then not taking their opinion as something that is important to them.
How important is small talk when selling to a woman?
Small talk is more like building the rapport, and so it is important. But you don't want to have, a lot of small talk, because then what happens is we forget why we're there.
Right.
And I think that's one of the curses of women building relationships. We forget, oh my God, we really have to get back on track. So I usually have like an agenda. Here's what we're going to do today, blah, blah, blah.
So I've been in sales meetings before where with men. And so I'm sitting down for lunch with the person, and we both know why we're there. The small talk is usually not very long, maybe 10 seconds, 15 seconds. How you been? How you been? Okay, so here's why we're here today, and then we're right into business. With a woman, that's a mistake.
Well, it is a mistake because we're not giving the opportunity to build a relationship. Women have to have a relationship first before they do business. And so when you go right in and say, okay, so here's why we're here, and here's the bullet points, our brains don't work like that. We need the story. We need to know why we're here. We need to know A, B, C, D, all the way through Z, where men can go from A to Z. And they don't really need to hear the middle. What happens is when we talk too much, they tune us out. And they come back in when they hear that word that really makes sense to them. So if you don't have the time to deal with women and you don't take the time, it's not going to be a relationship, and definitely not going to be somebody that gives you referrals. They're not going to become a center of influence.
One of the things that I'm discovering at my firm, because I love to talk, and I've hired a bunch of people who love to talk, but we do much better when we listen and just be quiet and allow the client or potential client to explain their story first. And then I've noticed that by the time we start talking, they like us a lot more. So what's happening there?
Well, 2 ears, 1 mouth. There's the first thing, because that's what we do. We should be listening more. We're giving an opportunity for somebody to tell you in their words what it is they really want. In your case, a prospective client would come in, and if you said, okay, so do you want PR? Here's when do you want to start? How do you want to pay for it? I'm thinking like, wait, you don't even know what I need yet. But if we started having a conversation and I said to you, so here's what I really am looking for. I'm not looking so much to do my website, but I'm really looking for you to get me onto the news, or I'm really looking for you to help me get more speaking engagements. Whatever it is, I've now told you in my words. So now you've heard it. When you repeat it back to me, I'm thinking, he listened to everything I just said.
Wow.
It's a whole different dynamic.
Judy Hoberman is my guest. She's a best-selling author and trainer and speaker. I have a question, and this is going to seem a little cosmic, but I want to hear what you have to say. I have a theory that women are better at reading somebody's energy than men. Mm-hmm. I think guys can do it, and some are better at it than others. But a woman could tell from 10 feet away whether there's a negative energy coming off of the person that is, trying to sell them. Do you agree?
I definitely agree. We call it intuition. And we also know that when we don't want somebody in our personal space, there's plenty of times I've met someone and I've had to back up because it's almost like this force that comes in. It's a negative force, and I've backed up because I don't want it in my space. We can basically read it. Are we always 100% right? No. But we are pretty close to being correct. When we don't listen to our intuition, it always backfires. Always. Wow. Just think about it. When, you're driving in a car and for some reason the energy is telling you to turn left, even when you know you need to turn right, and you turn left. And to the right, there was an accident. Or you meet somebody and you just know they're not the right person for you, and you decide to go into business anyway, and then it's a disaster. And it's happened. People have referred people to me, and I just knew something wasn't right, but I went for it anyway.
Okay, so every man who is married has sold to a woman and was successful.
That's right.
What did they do right? What do you think? I know that's a broad statement, but for a woman to fall in love with a man, what's happening there?
There's a relationship that's starting. It's not going from, hello, let's get married. It's going from, hello, let's go on a date. Hello, let's go on a second date. It's things like that. We're taking the time to get to know you. We're asking questions. They always had, remember what was that program, the Newlywed Game, where they would ask these silly questions,
right.
What's your favorite color or
right.
whatever. Most of the time they were funny because nobody listened to each other. Now people are actually taking the time to get to know each other. And those are the important things, the little things. It's not the big things. We all talk about what we really want, but it's the little things, like what's your favorite flower, or what do you like to do the most, or what's your favorite food, or what don't you like to eat? It's things like that where you just get to know each other on that level.
And you are married to the love of your life.
My Colonel.
The Colonel. How did he capture your heart? And your eyes are glowing right now. It's awesome.
And it was so funny because when we first met, we were like instant friends. Even though I was doing work for his company, and the first thing he said when I got off the plane was, "They don't want you here. They don't like you. Not going to talk about you. But have a good day." That was our first little encounter. But we got to know each other, and we became friends first. Then of course he fired me because he wanted to date me. But that's another.
Hey, tell us that story. I know you've told that to me off the air, but I think that's funny.
Okay, so here I am doing sales training for his company, and we're like a couple of months into it, and we're like really good friends, and we crack up all the time and everything. And then he told me, he said, it was around Christmas time, he said, "I need to fire you." I'm like, "Fire me? People love me." He goes, "Yeah, it's a conflict of interest." Like, I'm not sure what conflict it is, and he said, "Well, I want to date you." I'm like, "What?" Like, we're really good friends. So like I said, like, two things, buddy. Number one, never been fired. So can we let the contract expire? And number two, you better make it worth my while.
Wow.
And so 6 months later, we got engaged and we got married.
Wow. So how long have you been married now?
It'll be 4 years in October.
And you're still on your honeymoon, aren't you?
Yeah, kind of, sort of. I mean, we sometimes we live in two different places because of work, but yeah.
That's awesome. Well, tell us more about your speaking career. What kind of groups do you like to speak to?
I like to speak to groups that are either sales oriented, because a lot of my things are, go according to the sales process. But I also like to talk about men and women communicating. So it could be an association. Like I just spoke for the Material Handling Equipment Distribution Association. So it was really all about anything to do with business, whether it's a forklift, whether it's a truck. And it was awesome. It was about Women Mean Business. I've spoken to, I've shared the stage with Mary Kay because, we talk about women. I've done things for the insurance world. I've been on their main platform to do things about insurance. So it's really not necessarily the kind of group, it's what the message is.
Got it.
I kind of tailor my message to what they're looking for, not what I want to talk about.
And you mentioned training that you were doing for the Colonel's company. What kind of training, are there a variety of subjects you train in?
My training is usually dependent on, again, usually sales, because most people need help in sales, whether they're just starting or they're a veteran. But I always tell people, they say selling in a skirt, and men will say, well, I don't need it, I don't wear a skirt. But skirt is truly an acronym. And skirt, it stands for standing out. We have a very noisy world now. Keys to success, inspiration, results, and time management. Almost everybody has a challenge with one of those pieces. So when I go in, sometimes it is about, like, how do we make our product or ourselves unique? That's the standing out part. Or how do we get results? Or how do I actually figure out my time management? So it's that kind of thing, those kind of things that I actually do training on. But it's usually dependent on the sales process, because everybody needs help in sales.
Let's talk a little bit about millennials, because they're kind of a different breed.
Totally.
What are you discovering? Are they good at sales?
They are good at sales, but they also have to really be passionate about what they're doing. Millennials are a different breed. It's not just they want a job and they're going to be happy in a job, because that's not who they are. They want to have a passion and a purpose. And when they do, all of a sudden, things start to explode. So it could be that they're great in sales, but they just need to know, like, what they're looking for.
And they're more of a texting generation than a phone call generation, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, that's a given. I mean, a lot of times you'll see a group of millennials at a table and they're texting each other next to each other. And it's interesting. I was at a conference yesterday, and Steve Wozniak from Apple was saying things like, "Don't try to change people, because that's where they're growing up from." So,
Judy Hoberman, sellinginAskirt.com. Thank you for being on the Jeff Crilley Show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and love you to death.